Good morning out there. Today is Thursday, June 19th, 2025. I'm Anthony, and this is Drive Dive. June 19th happens to be the last day of our school year. Also happens to be actually Juneteenth, right? The last official day of slavery, or when it officially ended. So I want to acknowledge that, but I really just wanted to talk about the last day of the school year and to commemorate that and a little bit of my journey, but also to kind of thank my students where, yeah, it's had its challenges, right? I mean, I'm going through a lot of sort of adjustments, professionally where, right, I was a supervisor and I was making, $30,000 more a year and transitioning back into the classroom, an hour away from home, drive-wise, my commute, and just going through a lot of, maybe psychological struggles and things with that, coming to terms with the change and just having to do what I need to do to support that, so focused on that I don't know how much time I've spent really, investing in relationships, whether with colleagues or with students, and just kind of, was I doing enough of that, or was I really going through the motions? And I have to say that now that we've reached the end of the year, I feel like, I have, certainly made those connections as kids are coming to me, graduating seniors, right? And, anyway, asking me to sign their yearbooks and I'm writing, meaningful things, right? Recalling, moments that we shared, throughout the year, and just really, really wishing them well, but, feeling like there was a good bit of growth and things, in our relationship where, one student in particular, I recall feeling like she just really didn't trust me. Like any time like something came up, she had just this way of reacting that I was like, whoa, like where did that come from? Like I'm here to help you. Like I asked you an honest question, like what do you want to do, and how do you want to handle making up this quiz or test? Like I like breathe, to the point where, later on when something like that happened, it was like, able to kind of approach it differently. I think the two of us together, and come back to center, I guess, right? Much more quickly. And when she asked me to sign her yearbook, I was able to, write a little bit about that and how, like people are here to support you. There are people you can trust, right? Like, let's take that with us moving forward, and it's been a pleasure, all that stuff. And then, I've had those couple of kids where, during the holidays and now, right, like gift cards and things like that, it's like, obviously there's that connection, right? They didn't go home and go to their parents, like, oh, no, not that teacher. They're not deserving, right? So maybe that's like a really low bar, but, I am grateful that those students and their families, elected to, right, show that appreciation, in the form of a gift card, right? And I did have a couple of girls actually even bake me a cake, which this is my 19th year in education, and that's the first time, I believe that's the first time any of my students have ever baked me a cake. And I was telling them, like, I did one year, around the holidays, I got like a box of like alcohol infused chocolates, or things like that, right? Where you're like, all right, those are neat, teacher appreciation gifts, sure, appreciate all that, thank you. But baking a cake, right? And they were sharing how, I guess the instructions on the box, the recipe, called for a certain bake time, and they found it was maybe 2 or 3 times as long, and so they were sharing that experience, and they tried to write on the cake, sorry for talking. They shared they were aware that they spoke to each other a lot, during class this year, and there was maybe their way of apologizing, but also some kind of inside joke or something where, but when I say tried to write it, and they were like, oh, it got ruined throughout the day, like the foil on top, and maybe smudged it a little bit. I was like, you could kind of make it out, but it was pretty comical, but still cute and funny and much appreciated. So yesterday we were able to end that day. Only a class of 12 kids, and I want to say 2 were absent. I had an honorary member join us for part of the period. We had some pizza, and cake. They had asked me prior, at least a handful of times, what my favorite cake was, and I was either very non-committal, just kind of rattling off 3, 4, 5 different types of cake that I like, sharing like, oh no, just whichever one is freshest looking in the display case at the diner. Like that's my favorite cake. And just kind of goofing around with them, and then I think at some point I must have really strongly intimated, or maybe I just actually said that I appreciate a good carrot cake. So that's what they went with, and just really cool, this time of year, to really have those final moments with kids where they're talking about how great the year was and how much they're going to miss the class and things of that sort. You're like, okay, yeah, like this, despite my own struggles, it was still a positive, productive year. And yeah, it's still so hard always, and even as I talked about career changes in the past or potential ones moving forward, do you stay in the classroom? Do you try to go for the administration role and larger salary to be able to do X, Y, and Z, in your personal life and maybe, career-wise and connections with kids, just have a larger impact, right? Like those are some of the goals, I think, of being an administrator. And I did have a lot of those connections with kids, despite not having a classroom role and not having a role where I'm supporting kids directly, but more indirectly as a supervisor, right? Supporting teachers who in turn support kids and have these great moments and all that stuff. But I did enough of that. I did enough of that, I think, as a supervisor, going on field trips and things, and hanging out at esports events and sponsoring pizza and things of that nature, right? Like really just even like really supportive conversations in my office when kids are coming to me as per protocol about certain level changes, or I don't know, concerns about teachers or any kind of issues going on in the classroom. I'd have those conversations with kids and try to help them remedy those situations as best I could, in an unbiased fashion, and working things out with students and teachers alike. So just reminded of all of that. And then the cool part was, I guess, really making these connections. I think in this call I had with a recruiter who was talking about the importance of relationship building and listening skills, and that working with a client, like the more time you spend getting to know them, listening to them, they're telling you what they need, and then by the time you come around to proposing what this person called was a solution, but obviously it would be some sort of package for them to purchase and buy into, some sort of, whether it's a savings plan or investment plan, etc. Insurance policy, right? That's what this particular conversation was. I think it's the same thing going on in the classroom. That if you are ultimately, right, you're recognizing that there are some issues, and these children need to learn and master this content, these concepts. When you get to know them and listen to them and you really understand their needs and their learning preferences, it's really not that hard to, tailor your instruction to really meet their needs and help them move forward. So, rediscovering a lot of that this year, again, despite my struggles. And so, yeah, we'll see what the future holds. I get one last sort of half hour today with each of my classes to kind of, encourage them, like, hey, feel free to reach out next year, right? Just because you're not in my class doesn't mean I can't help you, sort of thing. Because I am, generally around after school, if they need stuff. So, that's it, right? Try to make myself available for when they do come calling, right? And, so I always have to remind myself, too, that sometimes it doesn't happen right away. But sometimes I think about other educators, and I know not every educator is able to or chooses to, make themselves available in the same way. And so maybe kids aren't accustomed to that, and so they're slower to take me up on my offer, right? And seek me out, trust and whatever, that I'll be available. So I don't know, that's education in a nutshell. Those are my final thoughts on the year. pretty solid. I think those, I got through some of those struggles and ultimately to a better place. And like I said, we'll see what the future holds. Am I still in Spotswood next year teaching? Am I on to a different district in an administrative capacity? Do I don't know, see what this recruiter has to offer and maybe completely change fields? None of these options, of course, are available right now, so I can't even call it a crossroads, but just one of those, let's see what happens and make the most of it, regardless, right? So, well, that's it. Thanks for watching. Nice, sunny end to the school year. Happy this Juneteenth, to those celebrating, and I guess as we all should celebrate or take a moment to acknowledge, the history of the U.S. and a pivotal moment in time. As is every end of year and graduation, for lots of families and students, right? Pivotal moment in time. So anyhow, that's that, and happy Thursday. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment down below if any of this resonated with you. See you when I see you. Take care.